Hey heathens, it's Gandini, and I got something cool for you. It is a pistol that is brand new to the market, and you probably have already seen videos on it. But this is my quick review on a pistol from Ruger that's designed to go after the Glock 19. Hey guys, it's Gandini, and I got a cool gun for you this week. This is a team up from Ruger and Magpul to make a really cool Glock clone that has some secrets behind it. Makes it just a little bit cooler. This is the new pistol from Ruger, the RXM. This is a brand new pistol to the market, and it is really cool. It is designed to go after the Glock 19 Gen 3. Designed to be a clone of the 19 Gen 3. I don't think they think that they're going to dethrone it, but it is another option for you, and at a pretty budget-friendly price. This is a pretty cool pistol. Glock 19 4-inch barrel. It's got Gen 3 components in it. Later in the video, we are going to try an aftermarket trigger on this guy, and we're going to try a different barrel on this guy and see if it really does take all Glock Gen 3 parts. Granted, they don't advertise 100% compatibility, but if it's even 80 to 90%, that's a pretty good sign. But definitely something cool. Let's go over some of the specs of this guy real quick, and then we'll get into some shooting and see how she feels under recoil. All right, starting at the nose, we got a 4-inch barrel, standard Glock 19 style barrel. Going across the front, you got some slight bevels in the slide there. I don't know if you could see it on camera for holstering the firearm. Up on top, you got a nice high co-witnessing night sight. It's got tritium built in, and it's a blacked out rear. And as you could see, they do co-witness with this Trijicon RMR. See if I can get it in there. Woo! Yeah, it's in there somewhere. It is co-witnessing with the Trijicon RMR. Moving on down, you have this really neat accelerator pedal ledge. Something to put your thumb on to kind of give some good pressure forward to keep that muzzle down. And it is an actual ledge. If you could see, there is an actual ledge there that you can actually put your thumb on. It's got more of a rounded trigger guard. This is more like the Smith & Wesson M&P series kind of style. But the really neat thing is the way they designed that. Even though it doesn't have that aggressive outshoot that Glocks run, it still locks into Glock holsters because the inner is still designed just like the Glock. So it will still lock into most Glock holsters. It's got a single slot Picatinny rail. I believe this is Glock rail because my Glock lights do fit on it just fine. Moving on across, you have this really nice grip texture. It is a really nice Magpul grip texture, and it's all the way around the gun. You got front, back, and side serrations, along with gas pedal serrations or memory serrations, whatever you want to call it. It's got a standard Gen 3 mag release, which means it is not ambidextrous. You can't swap it around and run it on the left side. And the slide releases are not ambidextrous either. Maybe down the road they'll come out with a fully ambi model, but right now it is pretty much made for right-handed people. You got this nice undercut underneath the trigger well. Gives you a nice high grip and keeps you from getting that Glock knuckle that everyone knows pretty well. You get a nice long beaver tail so you can get a nice high grip without having to worry about slide bite. And to top it all off, we have a mag well on this guy that's built into the gun. It even has like this little channel on the bottom here to help feed mags right on in. Really neat. All right, it is a Glock 19 clone, so it is running 15-round magazines, and since it's a team up with Magpul, it is running Magpul magazines. Me personally, I'm not a fan of the Magpul Glock mags, but it is a Glock 19, so mags are a dime a dozen, and I have a billion of them. But you guys came here to see me shoot it, and give my honest review of how it shoots. So let's go ahead and get geared up and get some rounds on target, see how she does. We got some 15 rounds in the magazine here. We're gonna go ahead and put some rounds on target and see how she does. Now, my red dot is not zeroed. I just mounted it earlier in the day. So we're gonna put some rounds on target and see how she does. I love this accelerator pedal because it gives me something to grip onto. It's really nice. All right, very simple with the Trijicon RMR on there. I can hit targets all day long with it. The co-witnessing sights are nice because even if I don't have that red dot on or that red dot dies, I can still see my iron sights just fine through the glass of my red dot. It is very nice to see that. But you know what? Let's see how she does with a KCI mag. These guys are one of my favorite Glock clone mags because it is very similar to Glock with their design features to the point where you can use Glock mag plates on these guys and it works just fine. But this is a pretty good, I've had pretty good reliability with KCI, and if you guys want a budget magazine, I'll put a link in the description down below where you can get KCI mags for pretty darn cheap. We'll put some rounds on target in pretty quick order here, and then we're going to throw a light on it and see how that recoil impulse is after that. All right, that was not a great shoot there, but it wasn't bad. My blue tinted glasses and the tint on this RMR makes it kind of hard to see that target, but whatever, it is what it is. Definitely something cool, but let's see how that recoil impulse is one-handed on this guy. So let's put some rounds on target, and we're gonna shoot that one-handed so you guys can see how that recoil impulse is before I put a light on it. Let's see up close. It's pretty much a Glock 19 in its recoil impulse. Nothing too crazy, nothing to write home to mom about. It is, if you're used to shooting a Glock 19, you're probably going to be pretty used to the RXM. But let's go ahead and throw a light on it and see how that changes the recoil impulse. All right, guys, I went out and put my TLR1 HL on this guy. This is a light from Streamlight. It is my favorite light to put on pretty much all of my guns. I have lots of holsters for Glock and for multi-gun use, like this Omnivore, that run the TLR1. So it locks in to 90% of my holsters right out the gate. Definitely something convenient for me, and a light system that I know is very reliable. What is an added benefit for having a light on your gun is it does add some weight near the muzzle to kind of keep that muzzle flip down. So let's see how much that affects recoil impulse. Let's go ahead and see that one-handed. Me personally, I feel like it did lower the recoil a little bit. The accelerator pedal on this is nice, but what's really nice is I can also put my thumb right here on that TLR1 and kind of help give a little bit extra push down on it to keep that muzzle even flatter. I personally like putting lights on all my guns, even if it's not for the use of lighting up the night. sometimes the best uses of the TLR1 or other flashlights is just to help keep that muzzle down, whether it be weight in the front, something to grab onto and push down, or, you know, holster compatibility. All those things are big pluses to running a light on your gun. I'm a fan, and I'm a big fan of the TLR1. Definitely a very easy gun to shoot fast and reliable. Like I said, I am a Glock 19 lover, so at the end of the day, it's just another Glock 19. But it is very innovative. So we're going to go back to the shop and check out the innovations on this guy, and then we'll come back out to the range with any aftermarket parts that I was able to put on it and see how she does. All right, guys, see you at the shop. We're going to check out the contents of the box of this guy before we dig in and see how compatible it is with Gen 3 parts. So let's go and get this out of the way. Of course, the box has got the Ruger and Magpul logos on the front of it. It's a nice hard clamshell case. Open it up. Of course, you have all your information for the gun, including warranties, manuals, which we're going to actually use the manual in this video to judge how to take the trigger components out. So we'll go into that here soon. Inside the box, of course, you have, this is the original mag plate that was on the gun. Now I did take it off to put the RMR on there. It also does come with extra bits in order to run the different optics that you want to run. Child safety lock, and then just a nice little hard plastic case. Definitely cool, and then it does come with 2 Magpul 15 round mags. Definitely something cool, but the main thing we're looking for is how compatible it is with Gen 3 parts. That being said, today I am going to change out some parts on it and see how compatible she is. So first thing I'm going to do is I have a disconnect from Apex. This one should lighten the trigger pull on that one. And I have a little lightning trigger. I do not remember where I got this from, but it is a trigger that we're going to throw in it and see how she does. Now I'm going to take apart this gun. It is basically like a standard Glock, so you're going to take down these levers, pull the trigger, and drop the slide. I can't show you on YouTube because YouTube does not like showing how guns are taken apart, which makes no sense. It's part of the safety and cleaning of them. But we're gonna go ahead and take this apart, and I'm gonna show you the innards, and we'll go from there. All right, so now that I got it apart, let's go over the innards. Now, if you look, granted my parts are filthy because I did not clean this after the range, but you'll look and you'll see the chassis system that's built in this guy. It's a really neat concept. This basically this pin comes out, and I believe this pin comes out, and then the whole chassis system comes out, and you can change frames. What I'm curious is to see what parts of Gen 3 trigger components will actually fit in it. When I'm looking at it, it does not look like the actual housing unit. This little housing unit will actually fit in here because you'll see, let's see if I can get in the light there. Kind of hard to see, but it's more of a T-shaped, while standard Glocks are very rectangular shaped across the front. Yeah, very rectangular across the front. Not sure if you guys can see that or not. So I don't believe the housing is going to change, but the trigger bar and disconnect look exactly the same. So we're going to go ahead and see about swapping those and see if it is compatible with trigger components. All right, now that I got the fire control unit out, you can see the parts a little bit better. I will say you do have to remove not only the takedown pin, you got to remove the first trigger pin and the takedown lock. All have to come out in order to get this guy out. So it's not really easy to take this apart. It's a lot more effort involved compared to, say, your Springfield Echelon. But other than that, it looks pretty reasonable to take the rest of the parts out. We're gonna see what we can do, and I'll sign back in when we get the new trigger in. All right, so definitely this housing is a proprietary housing. In order to actually get it out of the chassis, you actually have to pry the chassis apart just a little bit and then pull this thing out. So it's definitely proprietary. It is not compatible with Gen 3 parts for this housing. Now, the trigger looks just like a Gen 3 trigger, so we'll see how that goes in. All right, guys, so I got the new trigger in there. It did take a lot of trials and tribulations to get it to work properly, mainly because the apex disconnect does not work in the RXM. I don't know if it's something specific about this disconnect, but to give you an idea, this is the packaging that it came with. To give you guys an idea of what it is, that disconnect did not work. I could not get any of the triggers to work with it. I did have to do some tweaking around to figure out what was working. I will say this trigger shoe, which if I remember right, I bought this trigger from Davidson Defense. It was a super inexpensive Glock Gen 3 trigger, and I believe they called it the lightning trigger. There's no name to it. It's just the lightning trigger. With a better quality trigger, it's probably going to work a lot better for you. This is just a cheapy trigger I was going to throw in the budget build, but Palmetto State Armory's QC isn't working out so great for me. But nonetheless, the trigger seems to be working just fine. I will say the trigger shoes are a little bit different dimensionally this way, right here where it actually connects in. So there's a little bit more gap in the trigger between the locking lug, but it doesn't seem to have any kind of real sway here. So I don't think that's a big issue. I will say, let's show empty here. The trigger is a little cleaner with a little faster reset now. So I used the trigger shoe, trigger bar, and trigger spring from the Lightning kit, but the disconnect is the original disconnect that came with the RXM. I did not try it with this Lightning one, but it looked like it was pretty much the exact same dimensional disconnect, so I didn't feel like it was worth swapping it out just to see and have to tear everything down again if it didn't. But it is a little nicer feel trigger to it, in my opinion. As you guys can see, I don't know, a little faster reset, and then immediately to a break. So there's no squishiness, and it's just right there to the break. So Gen 3 triggers do work with some finagling. I haven't seen anyone online putting any aftermarket parts on it yet, so figured might as well show you guys. But that's just a quick overview, and like I said, Gen 3 parts will work. It just takes some finagling. All right, heathens, I am back out at the range, and I got it finally finished with the new trigger on there, as you saw. And I actually fitted it with a Gen 3 19 barrel. This is a Bear Creek Arsenal threaded barrel, nothing fancy. And this is a Davidson Defense Lightning trigger. Also, nothing fancy. Let's see if it works with the cheap parts first before you go out and spend money on some more expensive stuff, right? Well, I want to see how well this functions. And like you saw in the tabletop, it did need some finagling in order to function properly. But let's go ahead and put some rounds on target and see if under recoil those parts still work fine.
Hope you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go. Hustle hard, hustle every single day. I'll be making moves till I'm buried in my grave. To the system, I don't wanna be a slave.
Oh, I can't hit shit today, but hey, the trigger, I will say, feels a lot nicer in this guy. how does it compare to just a standard Glock 19 Gen 5 with a threaded barrel apparently? But I want to see how they compare together. So let's go ahead and grab my 19 and I'll show you a little side by side and then we'll get into my final thoughts of this guy. All right guys, I am back. I got 15 more rounds ready for this guy and I wanted to compare it to my Glock 19 Gen 5. Both have threaded barrels on them. This one has a Zev barrel, of course. Higher good stuff in your actual Glock, cheaper stuff in your Ruger, right? Makes sense. Side by side, they are very similar. If you go back a slide to back a slide, they match up pretty much identically. If you go widths of slides, I'm going to say the Ruger's just a hair thinner on that slide. But I did see a review from Mix-Up 98 where he did put the Gen 4 slide right on this guy and it worked just fine. Well, at least it mounted just fine. He didn't actually shoot it, but that's okay. Other than that, when you go sight or top of slide to top of slide, just because this one's got extended, it's got higher sights on it. So we're gonna go top of slide to top of slide. They're pretty much identical all the way around. So it's definitely a Glock 19 Gen 3 clone. So let's see how a ramped up version of the RXM compares to almost a bone stock Glock 19. Let's go ahead and put a couple rounds on target with the RXM. Well, if I can hit the target. Okay, that's a couple rounds with the RXM. Let's go ahead and put a couple rounds with the Glock 19. And then let's go ahead and shoot them one-handed and see how they compare. So, one-handed and two-handed, they feel very similar. I mean, it is a Glock 19 essentially. So it does make sense that this is essentially the same feeling gun, right? But how do they feel akimboed? That's the question. All right, so we have our first failure with the Ruger RXM. And it's not a failure with the gun, it's a failure with this cheap trigger that I have in it. So let's see if I broke something or if it just failed to reset. Okay. So it was just some kind of failure to reset. We're definitely gonna put some more rounds through this trigger before I recommend this trigger. But nonetheless, you shouldn't put budget parts into your gun, especially not triggers and barrels. Those are probably two of the most important things to make sure that you get good quality materials. Now, this trigger's not going to stay in here. This was just a experiment to see if it could take Gen 3 triggers before I go out and order an Apex or something a little bit better to throw in this guy. But it is neat that it did fit just fine, and down the road we will see what it looks like with better triggers in it. My final first thoughts on the Ruger RXM. It is a 19 Gen 3 clone. I will not say you should buy it over a Glock 19. At the end of the day, Glock is the dependable Honda Civic of the gun world. At the end of, this is just another Kia Sorento going out there, you know, kind of a cheap knockoff. I will say, if you want a fun gun to customize, or if you're on a budget, this is probably a really good option. I have about 250 to 300 rounds through it now, and I have yet to have a single failure except for what happened with the trigger. That's the only failure I've had with this guy. So that being said, I do believe this is going to be a great budget gun. That's my first thoughts. As always, like and subscribe, comment on this video. Would you buy the Ruger RXM yourself, or have you already? And let me know what you think of it. If you have put any aftermarket parts in yours, I also want to know in the comment section how hard, how difficult it was for you. Guys, if you want to support the channel, go ahead and click the links in the description down below, or check out gundeity.com where I have lots of things out for sale, along with merch. We have merch now, guys. Hats, shirts, jackets, you name it, we got it. Go into the merch site. Right here down below this video, there is a bunch that are offered on here, along with shirts that I'm wearing under this jacket, but it's cold out here. But as always, I'm Gundeity, and I'll see you heathens for the next one.
I got a God complex. Haters love to hate, but I never feel pressed. Got a lot on my plate, but I never get stressed. I'll take all the pressure like I'm acing this test. And like a damn Freemason, I'll run this nation. They call me a